What if Ukraine's best chance of stopping Russia's missiles is not to shoot them down, but to make launching them far more difficult? And what happens when the shield is too expensive, too slow, and too limited to protect every city? Before we explore that dangerous strategy, tap like if you want clear, balanced explanations of the war, subscribe for more videos, and share this with someone who wants to understand what is really happening beyond the headlines. Ukraine is facing a problem that cannot be solved by courage alone. Every day, the country must defend its soldiers at the front, its power stations, its factories, its railways, and its cities. But among all the threats Russia can send across the border, ballistic missiles are among the hardest to stop. Drones can be terrifying, especially when they arrive in large groups, but many drones are slow, they fly low. Their engines can sometimes be heard before they reach their targets. With enough warning, Ukraine can use guns, electronic jamming, mobile teams, and cheap interceptor drones to destroy them. Ballistic missiles are different. They can be launched from far away. They climb high into the sky, then fall toward their targets at extreme speed. Their flight time may be short. Their paths can be difficult to predict. And once the missile is already approaching a city, the defender may have only seconds to react. That creates an uncomfortable question. If Ukraine cannot build a complete shield around every important location, should it try to destroy the missile before it is launched? This is the idea behind an offensive defense. It does not mean attacking randomly. It does not mean striking every target simply because it exists. It means attacking the systems that make repeated missile attacks possible. Those systems include launch vehicles, storage sites, command networks, fuel supplies, transport routes, and factories. The goal is simple to describe, but extremely difficult to achieve. Reduce the number of missiles Russia can fire instead of trying to intercept every missile after launch. That strategy is becoming more important because the balance between Russian missile production and Ukrainian air defense is changing. At the beginning of the full-scale invasion, Russia had enormous stockpiles of missiles. Many of those weapons had been built before the war. But a long war consumes ammunition quickly. Cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, air defense interceptors, artillery shells, and drones all disappear faster than factories can replace them. Russia has responded by expanding production, adapting older designs, purchasing foreign components, and using drones to save its more expensive weapons for important targets. The result is a mixed air war. Ukraine has become much better at defending against some kinds of attacks. It has created networks of radar, mobile fire teams, electronic warfare units, machine guns, searchlights, and low-cost interceptor drones. These systems do not look as impressive as a modern missile battery, but they can be highly effective against slow, predictable targets. That matters because Russia has used large waves of one-way attack drones to exhaust Ukrainian defenses. A drone that costs a small fraction of the price of a surface-to-air missile can force the defender into a difficult choice. If Ukraine fires an expensive interceptor at every cheap drone, its ammunition may run out. If it refuses to fire, the drone may hit a city or a military facility. Ukraine's answer has been to build cheaper layers of defense. Some interceptor drones are designed to ram incoming attack drones. Others use nets, explosives, or high-speed pursuit. Ground teams use mobile weapons. Electronic warfare systems interfere with navigation. The purpose is not to depend on one perfect system, but to create many overlapping chances to stop the attack. This approach can work against relatively slow drones. But ballistic missiles create a different equation. A ballistic missile does not need to wander over the battlefield looking for a target. It can be launched from hundreds of kilometers away and travel along a high-speed trajectory. Some types maneuver during flight, making interception even harder. The defender needs specialized radars, advanced command systems, and interceptors designed for the job. A cheap drone interceptor cannot simply be scaled up into a ballistic missile defense system. The technology, training, and cost are completely different. Ukraine has received some of the world's most advanced air defense systems, including Patriot batteries. These systems can intercept certain ballistic missiles, but they are not magical walls. They have limited ammunition, their radar coverage is finite, they must be positioned carefully, and they cannot protect every town, factory, bridge, and power station at the same time. Even a successful interception creates another problem. The interceptor missile may cost hundreds of thousands, or even millions of dollars. Russia may fire a missile that is cheaper to produce. If the exchange continues night after night, the defender can lose financially even while winning individual engagements. That does not make missile defense useless. It makes missile defense incomplete. A country at war needs both a shield and a way to damage the enemy's sword. The shortage is not only Ukraine's problem. European countries have spent decades purchasing small numbers of advanced weapons, while assuming that a major war was unlikely. Many military plans were designed around short operations, not years of industrial warfare. That assumption now looks dangerously outdated. Modern air defense depends on stockpiles. A battery without interceptors is little more than a radar in a collection of launch vehicles. A country can have excellent technology and still be vulnerable if it does not have enough ammunition to sustain a long campaign. The production problem cannot be fixed overnight. Factories can expand, new assembly lines can be built, contracts can be signed, but specialized missile components require time. Skilled workers must be trained, suppliers must increase output, testing must be completed, and governments must decide whether they are willing to spend money today for a war that may never come tomorrow. Ukraine does not have the luxury of waiting for the perfect defensive network. Its cities are being attacked now. That is why offensive options matter. The first option is to hunt the launchers. Russian ballistic missile systems are often mobile. A launcher can fire, pack up, and move before counterattack arrives. This is known as a shoot and move tactic. The missile exposes the launcher's location when it fires, but the launcher may be gone by the time a conventional weapon reaches that position. That makes the launcher both valuable and difficult to destroy. Ukraine can try to find these systems using satellites, surveillance aircraft, local intelligence, electronic signals, and long-range drones. But locating a launcher is not enough. The information must be accurate, it must be recent, the weapon must reach the target quickly. And the strike must happen before the vehicle disappears into a forest, underground facility, military base, or civilian area. This is where loitering drones become important. A drone can search an area for a mobile vehicle. It can remain in the air while analysts study roads, buildings, and camouflage patterns. If the launcher appears, the drone may attack immediately or guide another weapon toward it. The process is more like hunting than traditional bombing. The attacker is not simply aiming at fixed coordinates. It is following a moving target through a changing environment. Ukraine has already used drones to locate Russian launch systems in occupied territory and near the front. These attacks can destroy launchers, damage support vehicles, or force Russian crews to abandon their positions. Even when a launcher survives, repeated hunts may make crews more cautious and slow down the firing cycle. That creates military value. A missile system that must constantly hide is less useful than one that can prepare, launch, reload, and relocate freely. However, hunting launchers has serious limits. The first is distance. If Russia moves its launchers deeper into its own territory, Ukrainian drones may need to travel farther. That means more fuel, more flight time, and more exposure to air defenses. A drone that spends several hours reaching an area may find that the target has moved minutes before arrival. The second limit is communication. A pre-programmed drone is not enough for a moving target. The drone needs a live connection. Operators need to receive its video. Intelligence teams need to update the mission. The system must continue working while the drone is far beyond the front line. That is why satellite communications can become so important. A drone connected to a satellite network can transmit information from areas where normal radio links are weak or blocked. It can allow operators to redirect the mission in real time. But this also creates political and technical complications. Satellite providers may restrict how their networks are used. They may fear becoming direct participants in attacks across an international border. Ukraine's argument is that these strikes are not simply offensive adventures. They are attempts to stop missiles before they are used against Ukrainian cities. That argument may be persuasive, but it does not remove the risk. Every long-range strike can trigger retaliation. Every new capability may lead Russia to move launchers, strengthen air defenses, or change its targeting methods. War is an interaction. One side's solution becomes the other side's problem, and the other side then searches for a new answer. There's also a temptation to use expensive aircraft for these missions. Fighter jets, including Ukraine's F-16s, can carry weapons farther and faster than many drones. A weapon released from high altitude may gain extra range. Aircraft can respond quickly once intelligence is available. They can also carry sensors and communicate with other platforms. But sending a fighter deep into hostile airspace is not the same as sending a drone. A drone can be lost without putting a pilot in danger. A fighter is expensive, visible, and politically sensitive. Russia still has dangerous air defense systems, even if its defenses are inconsistent. One mistake could cost a trained pilot and an aircraft that Ukraine cannot easily replace. The safest use of aircraft may be to launch long-range weapons from outside the most dangerous zones, rather than turn the aircraft themselves into missile hunting scouts. The second offensive option is to attack missile storage. Launchers are mobile, but missiles still need to be stored, inspected, transported, and prepared. They may be kept at military depots, rail facilities, air bases, or specialized support sites. A missile sitting in storage cannot hit a city. If Ukraine can destroy stockpiles before they reach launch units, it may reduce future attacks without needing to find every launcher in the field. Storage sites may also be easier to map than mobile vehicles. Their locations can remain known for months or years. But storage sites are often protected. They may be dispersed across large military areas. They may use reinforced buildings, underground spaces, decoys, and layered air defenses. Russia can also separate missiles from their warheads, or keep them in different locations, making a single strike less decisive. The third option is to attack production. This is the most strategic approach, and perhaps the most difficult. Russia's missile industry depends on factories that assemble weapons, produce engines, manufacture guidance systems, and integrate electronic components. Some facilities are located deep inside Russia, far from the battlefield, and far from many Ukrainian weapons. Ukraine has developed longer-range drones and missiles capable of reaching targets previously considered out of reach. These weapons have been used against refineries, ammunition facilities, air bases, warehouses, and industrial sites. The importance of such strikes is not always measured by a dramatic explosion. A factory may continue standing but lose a critical machine. A production line may be delayed because a building is damaged. Workers may be forced to evacuate. Components may need to be moved. Engineers may spend weeks repairing equipment instead of assembling weapons. Industrial warfare is often about time. If Russia needs 6 months to restore a damaged production line, Ukraine may gain 6 months in which fewer missiles are available. If several facilities are disrupted at once, the effect can spread through the supply chain. Yet missile factories are not easy targets. They are usually less flammable than fuel depots or oil refineries. They may be divided into separate workshops. Important equipment may be placed underground or behind reinforced walls. Some facilities can disperse production across several cities. A strike that looks impressive on video may cause only temporary damage. This is a key difference between destroying a factory and destroying a fuel tank. Fire and smoke do not automatically prove that production has stopped. The real question is whether the machinery, power systems, testing equipment, and specialized workshops are still operating. There's another problem: range. The farther a target is from Ukraine, the more difficult the mission becomes. A weapon must travel hundreds or even thousands of kilometers. It must avoid detection, survive electronic interference, and reach the correct location. Ukraine may have only a limited number of long-range weapons, so every mission requires careful prioritization. If those weapons are used against a factory, they cannot be used against an airbase, command center, bridge, or ammunition depot. War is a series of choices made under pressure. A target can be important without being the most important target. This is where the idea of an offensive defense becomes more complicated. Ukraine cannot simply ask, "Can we hit this?" It must ask, "What happens after we hit it? How much damage will it cause? How quickly can Russia recover? What target are we giving up by using this weapon here?" The best offensive defense may not be the most dramatic operation. It may be the one that quietly reduces the enemy's ability to attack over many months. If Ukraine destroys launchers, it reduces immediate firing capacity. If it destroys storage, it reduces the supply ready for use. If it damages production, it affects future attacks. If it strikes command networks, it can make the entire missile campaign slower and less coordinated. Each level has a different effect. A launcher strike may protect a city tonight. A factory strike may protect cities months from now. A command strike may reduce the accuracy and timing of future attacks. The strongest strategy may combine all three. This is also why Ukraine's long-range drone campaign has become so significant. Drones are not always powerful enough to destroy hardened targets completely, but they can force Russia to spend money and manpower on protection. Russia must build new hangars. It must move aircraft. It must place more air defense systems around factories. It must create patrols, camouflage, decoys, and electronic barriers. Every defensive measure has a cost. A missile battery guarding a factory cannot guard a troop concentration. A fighter protecting a refinery cannot patrol the front. A security unit assigned to a depot cannot be used elsewhere. This is the indirect effect of offensive operations. They make the enemy defend more territory with the same limited resources. Of course, Russia is trying to solve its own vulnerabilities. It can move industrial equipment. It can build decoy factories. It can use underground workshops. It can purchase components through third countries. It can change launch locations and firing schedules. No single strike will end Russia's missile campaign. The objective is to create friction everywhere. A missile takes longer to produce. A launcher needs more time to prepare. A convoy travels under heavier security. A factory works fewer hours. A crew becomes afraid to park in the same location twice. When these small disruptions accumulate, the number of missiles reaching Ukrainian cities may begin to fall. That is the theory. But there is a moral and political question that cannot be ignored. Long-range strikes against targets inside Russia may increase the risk of escalation. Supporters argue that Russia cannot safely attack Ukraine while expecting its own military infrastructure to remain untouched. Critics worry that deeper strikes could lead to broader retaliation. The debate is not only about military effectiveness, it is about risk. Ukraine has to defend its population while avoiding actions that could reduce international support or trigger a wider conflict. Its partners must decide how much range and targeting freedom they are willing to provide. They must also decide whether restrictions designed to prevent escalation may actually make Ukrainian cities more vulnerable. A policy that prevents Ukraine from striking missile launch sites near the border can produce a strange result. Russian forces may gather in protected areas, fire at Ukraine, and assume that the defender cannot respond effectively. That does not necessarily create stability. Sometimes a carefully limited offensive capability can reduce danger by making attacks more costly and less predictable. Deterrence does not always come from threatening everything. It can come from proving that certain attacks will carry immediate consequences. The challenge is keeping that response focused. Military targets are easier to justify than symbolic targets. Missile launchers, storage depots, radar sites, and production facilities have a clear connection to attacks on Ukraine. Striking them can be presented as part of a defensive campaign. That distinction matters to allies, neutral countries, and the wider public. It also matters to the future of the war. A strategy built around revenge may create headlines, but achieve little. A strategy built around reducing enemy capability can save lives even when the results are invisible. If you believe Ukraine needs more than one layer of protection, take a moment to support the channel by leaving a like. If this explanation has helped you see the difference between defending against a missile and preventing the next missile from being fired, share it with a friend who follows the war. The central question is not whether Ukraine should choose offense or defense. It needs both. Air defense protects people and infrastructure from attacks that still get through. Offensive operations reduce the number of attacks that can happen in the first place. One buys time, the other changes the enemy's calculations. The problem is that both systems compete for scarce resources. Ukraine needs radar, interceptors, repair crews, drones, satellite links, engineers, and trained operators. It needs long-range weapons, but it also needs short-range protection. It needs to guard cities, but it must also strike military infrastructure. Every decision leaves something else less protected. This is why simple solutions are misleading. Just send more air defense missiles. Sounds obvious, but the world cannot produce unlimited numbers immediately. Just destroy the launchers, ignores mobility, distance, and intelligence gaps. Just bomb the factories, ignores hardened buildings, supply chains, and limited ammunition. The real answer is a system of pressure. First, Ukraine must continue building low-cost defenses against drones. It cannot waste its most expensive interceptors on every cheap target. Second, it must reserve advanced missile defenses for the threats that cannot be handled by cheaper methods. Third, it must improve early warning so that every available defensive weapon is used at the right moment. Fourth, it must hunt launchers when intelligence is good enough to produce a real chance of success. This layered approach resembles the way a military protects an important position on the ground. It does not rely on one trench or one weapon. It uses distance, surveillance, obstacles, artillery, reserves, and counterattacks. Air defense should work the same way. The first layer is prevention. Make the attack harder to prepare. The second layer is disruption. Interfere with transport, communication, and command. The third layer is interception. Destroy the incoming weapon when possible. The fourth layer is recovery. Repair damage quickly and keep essential services operating. No layer will be perfect. Together, they can make a campaign less effective. Russia's missile strategy depends on more than the number of weapons it produces. It depends on whether those weapons can be delivered accurately, whether launch crews can operate safely, whether command networks remain connected, and whether Ukraine's population believes it can survive the next attack. This last point is often underestimated. Missile campaigns are designed not only to destroy buildings, but also to create fear. They aim to make civilians feel that nowhere is safe. They pressure governments to divert resources. They interrupt electricity, heating, transportation, and industry. That is a difficult form of warfare. It involves analysts, engineers, satellite imagery, informants, intercepted communications, and years of study. The public usually sees the explosion. The real victory may be hidden inside a quiet factory where a damaged machine is no longer working. Still, there are reasons to remain cautious. Russia has depth. Its territory is large. Its industry is spread across many regions. It can absorb losses that would be devastating for a smaller country. Even a successful strike campaign may reduce missile production rather than stop it. Ukraine also faces the danger of running out of long-range weapons. If every missile is used in one major operation, the campaign may create a temporary shock, but lose momentum. A sustained strategy may be more valuable than a spectacular single attack. The same principle applies to air defense. Using every interceptor during one massive raid may protect the country for one night and leave it exposed the next week. Commanders must always think beyond the immediate attack. This is what makes the war so difficult to understand from a distance. A decision that appears passive may be deliberate conservation. A target that looks important may rank below another target that is less visible. A missed interception may reflect an impossible choice rather than a simple failure. Ukraine is not choosing between a perfect shield and a perfect sword. It is choosing how to survive with limited tools against a larger industrial power. That is why the phrase, "a good offense is the best defense," should not be treated as a slogan. In Ukraine's case, it describes a practical necessity. When defensive missiles are scarce, prevention becomes more valuable. When launchers are mobile, surveillance becomes as important as firepower. When factories are far away, patience and precision matter more than raw destruction. When every strike carries political risk, target selection becomes part of strategy. The best offensive defense will not eliminate every Russian missile. It will make the missile campaign less reliable, less frequent, and more expensive. That could mean Russia launches fewer weapons. It could mean attacks are delayed. It could mean more missiles are diverted to protect launch sites. It could mean crews hesitate because they no longer believe their positions are safe. Even a small change in the attacker's confidence can save lives. But Ukraine cannot depend on offense alone. Some missiles will always get through. Some launchers will remain hidden. Some factories will continue operating. That is why European governments must expand production and provide a sustainable supply of air defense interceptors. This is not charity in the narrow sense. It is a lesson in security. A country can spend decades believing that major war is unlikely. But when war arrives, factories cannot instantly create the weapons that were never ordered. Stockpiles cannot be filled in a few months. Industrial capacity must be built before the crisis, not during it. The choices made now will shape Europe's security for decades. If production expands, Ukraine may receive more protection while European countries rebuild their own defenses. If production remains slow, Ukraine will continue facing the same brutal trade-off. Use limited interceptors to save one city tonight, or preserve them for a larger attack tomorrow. No defender should be forced into that choice indefinitely. The future of the air war will probably be decided by a combination of technologies. Interceptor drones may become faster and smarter. Radar networks may become more integrated. Artificial intelligence may help identify launchers and calculate interception paths. Long-range weapons may become more accurate and harder to detect. But technology alone will not decide the outcome. Training matters. Maintenance matters. Intelligence matters. Political permission matters. Above all, industrial scale matters. The side that can keep replacing its weapons, repairing its systems, and learning from failure will have an advantage over time. Ukraine has already shown an extraordinary ability to adapt. It has turned commercial drones into military tools, created new layers of air defense, developed long-range strike systems, and attacked targets that were once considered unreachable. Russia has adapted too. This is not a contest where one innovation ends the war. It is a race between adaptation and adaptation. The question is, which side can force the other to spend more resources responding than it can afford? For Ukraine, offensive defense offers a way to change that calculation. A launcher destroyed before firing is more valuable than a missile intercepted after launch. A damaged production line may prevent dozens of future attacks. A disrupted command network may reduce the effectiveness of an entire wave. These effects are not guaranteed, but they offer possibilities that a purely defensive posture cannot provide. And there is one more reason this strategy matters. Defense can protect what already exists. Offense can create space for the future. If Ukraine reduces missile pressure, it may restore electricity more quickly. It may protect factories long enough to increase production. It may keep railways operating. It may give civilians more confidence to remain in their homes. It may allow soldiers and commanders to focus on the front instead of constantly preparing for the next strike. A country under attack needs time. Offensive operations can help create it. The strongest defense is not always the wall that blocks the arrow. Sometimes it is the action that forces the archer to lower the bow. Ukraine's challenge is to make that idea real without wasting weapons, losing aircraft, or creating unnecessary escalation. It must strike carefully, repeatedly, and with a clear purpose. The goal is not destruction for its own sake. The goal is to reduce the threat. That means targeting the chain, the factory that builds the missile, the depot that stores it, the vehicle that carries it, the network that directs it, and the launcher that fires it. Break enough links, and the attack becomes weaker. So, what should we remember? Ukraine's defenses against drones have improved, especially through cheap interceptors and layered systems. Ballistic missiles remain a much harder challenge because they are fast, difficult to track, and expensive to intercept. More Patriot batteries and other advanced systems are essential, but new production will take time. Existing defenses cannot cover every important target. Hunting mobile launchers with drones may provide immediate results, but it depends on accurate intelligence, fast communication, and the ability to reach deeper into Russian territory. Striking missile storage and production can reduce future attacks, but those targets are protected, dispersed, and sometimes difficult to damage permanently. The most effective strategy will combine defense and offense. Intercept what cannot be prevented. Prevent what cannot be safely intercepted. That is the real meaning of an offensive defense. Ukraine may not be able to build an impenetrable shield soon, but it may be able to make Russia's missile campaign slower, riskier, and less powerful. And in a war measured not only by territory but by endurance, that may be enough to change the balance. Because every missile that fails to launch is a city that does not need to hide. Every damaged launcher is a warning that the next attack may carry a price. And every month gained is a chance for Ukraine, Europe, and its partners to build the defenses that should have existed before the missiles began to fall. If you want more analysis that connects battlefield tactics with the larger strategy of the war, subscribe before you leave. Your support helps this channel keep turning complicated military questions into clear stories. And tell us in the comments, should Ukraine prioritize stronger air defense, deeper strikes on launchers, or attacks on missile production? The answer may determine whether the next phase of the air war is controlled by the attacker's missiles or by the defender's ability to reach them first.